A meeting of the West Newbury Board of Selectmen, Monday, April 12th. It is 7:04 p.m. This meeting is being broadcast on local cable TV and recorded for rebroadcast on the local cable channels and on the internet. The meeting is also accessible by remote participation. It is a Zoom meeting. The phone, Zoom phone number is 646-558-8656. The meeting ID is 922-8591-6995, and the passcode is 000384. As of now, our new email address to conduct business with the board is selectboard@wnewbury.org. The electric vehicle charging stations at the 1910 building and the Page School are now available for use. Rick, you want to add a few words on that?
Well, yeah, they've just been operational for a couple of weeks now, and I guess a week and a half. So I don't know what kind of usage they've gotten yet, but they're ready for prime time. So
we've gotten money. People have used them because we've gotten money from them.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yep. So the people are using them.
Yeah, great. So yeah, and if people do use them and have feedback, it would be interesting to hear.
That's true. Yeah.
And any kind of feedback would be good, because just understanding, what people's experiences are, if they think we're at the right price point, we're trying to understand, the goal is for these not to be a revenue producer for the town, but for us to break even. And, when you consider the overall operation. So any kind of feedback, good or bad, would be appreciated.
Every year, there's a, and I forget the exact date, but it's coming up soon. The select board has to appoint new or continuing members of the Board of Fire Engineers, and I just wanted to know that application for possible consideration for that post are available on the town website. Do you know exactly where it is, Angus? Or
to give you the date, we have to do that in April. There's no date, but it has to be done.
Just by the end of April? Okay.
That's right. So yeah, so
Okay.
if someone's interested, so we'll include that on the April 26th select board agenda. And if anybody is interested in putting their name in throwing their hat in the ring, they could just click on the volunteer button on the town website, and that takes you to the application for committee appointment.
Friday, April 30th and Saturday, May 1st, there will be a virtual Arbor Day celebration. A lot of different things are planned for that. So go to the tree committee webpage to check out the details on that. So that's coming up, actually. The end of April is coming up actually pretty soon. That's amazing. The townwide cleanup will also be that same weekend, Saturday and Sunday, May 1st and 2nd, in conjunction at the same time as Earth Day. The town election will be the day after that, Monday, May 3rd, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And the town meeting will be, this year will be later because it's going to be outdoors on Saturday, May 22nd. And as usual, sign up for announcements at wnewbury.org.
Archie, just one more thing. I had intended to put this on the agenda and I forgot. We did include the materials in your packet, but just as one more reminder that the Board of Health is conducting a public hearing tomorrow afternoon at 4:30 regarding proposed changes to solid waste and recycling hauling and fee structure. So we had intended to put that under announcements, but had forgotten. So we have put that on the website with all the logged information. But if people are interested in that issue, the hearing with the Board of Health is tomorrow afternoon at 4:30.
And that's certainly something that affects everybody. Everybody has trash and recycling, and this is a big change for residents. So if you have questions, a lot of the questions have been thoroughly vetted. The questions are available, but you might have a particular issue just for yours that applies only to you. And so I would recommend attending that public hearing to get your questions asked. Because this is happening. Okay, first item is a request for a special event permit. The Apple Harvest Road Race, October 1st, and I guess would be Friday night.
I would, Archie, if I could, I'd
Sure.
like to recommend that we postpone action on that.
Sure.
Paul has suggested that we take more time to wait and see how things go, especially where there's a proposed indoor dinner. So at this point, we don't have health sign off. So I had gone ahead and put it in the packet before I just, when I get these, I assume that everything's been signed off. And when Annie saw the posted agenda, she said, oh, no, that one's not ready. So if you'd pass over item A with no action.
Yeah, one of the things that was still in whatever level 4, part 1 or whatever, I thought actual road races was one of the things that at least at the moment had not, the road race itself even had not been that something that the governor had not signed off on yet.
Right. I think under today's guidelines, it could not be approved. And so the
Right.
is to wait a couple of months and see if things open up.
Okay.
I'm just kind of curious from the standpoint of the, and I don't disagree with this, I just understanding, trying to understand the time frame that it takes the organizers of the Apple Harvest to put things together. I wonder what for them is effectively a drop dead date organizationally to be able to pull it off.
I know they're in touch with Annie regularly. I mean, she's the primary point of contact who handles the special event permits, and they're comfortable with it being postponed. So I don't know if it'll be back before you in a month or 6 weeks or 2 months. It all depends on really when the guidelines change to where health could approve it.
Yeah. Okay.
We have a request to install signage on the trees at the Indian Hills Reservoir by Mr. Elwell. John, you want us to give us a little briefing on that?
Sure, I'd be pleased to do so. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I've got a brand new computer. It's the first time I've used Zoom, so I wanted to make sure that it was working. I'm the owner, for those who might not know, I'm not sure there are any who don't know, but I'm the owner of, and my wife and I, of Maple Crest Farm, which abounds the Indian Hill Reservoir. And I see lots and lots of people walking the route over there, the highway, the access roadway. And I got thinking one day, and my property abuts right to that roadway. Gee, this would be a great chance, a great opportunity to let people learn more about trees. Trees are essential for our well-being. They're essential to the climate, to the environment. And I'm involved with a group in Newbury, although it's more regional than that, called ACES, the Alliance of Climate and Environmental Stewards. And we're trying to work through the local high school, hoping to expand to other high schools, ways to have internships for kids to have the experience of the environment and learning about climate, etc. So I come up with the idea that I would, as a trial basis, see if I get a couple kids from Newbury High School who would identify trees. And I have two students who have been absolutely remarkable. As a matter of fact, your chair of your tree committee, Frederick Chenania, joined us about a week and a half ago. And he walked around with one of the interns, and he clearly knows his trees, but this kid knew as much, I think, as he did. He even knew the Latin names of the trees. So what we're proposing is that we put up signage on about 15 trees. And we are developing the sign. It'll be about 8 by 10 inches. I have found a company in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, who will make the signs for free. The signs will have a picture of the leaf on them. It'll have the English and Latin names. It'll have a description of the tree and its impact on the environment. And there'll be some recognition at the bottom of the two students who are doing it and of the environmental group and of the company that has volunteered for no charge to make the signs. And they're made from really 1/8 inch thick aluminum composite material with a thin layer of aluminum on the outside surface. They said that they'll last 3, 4, 5 years. They would be attached easily to the trees with screws, with non-rust type screws. And basically that's it. It's 15 trees. I would say that 2/3 of them are probably on my property, which is adjacent to that roadway. I've been dealing with Newburyport with it too, and they pretty much behind it. I've spoken to the head of the water department. I've spoken to the tree warden there. I've spoken with Mayor Donna, etc. So basically that's what it is. I came up with this idea. I'm not sure how I came up with it, but I did. And I think it would be really great for the number of people who walk around the reservoir to see how important trees are in our environment. So that's it.
John, I mean, maybe I'm completely out of bounds. Is any potential, are we hurting the trees by doing this?
I haven't heard from anybody that would happen because we're going to use screws which are either non-metallic or rust-proof, maybe even aluminum. They'll be real small. There'll be one screw at the top and one screw at the bottom of the sign, and that'll be it.
Okay.
I really don't see, if it was worse come to worse, we could always just run a wire around the back of the plaque and wire it to the tree, but I think that would cause more damage because eventually the tree would grow into the wire.
Yeah, I think if you do screw them to the tree, John, you probably want to periodically remove them and reinstall them, because otherwise the tree will grow around.
Yeah,
You know,
I would be more than willing to do that. I could
Yeah,
change
I mean,
them every
that,
year.
Yeah,
Once
or every
a-
couple of 3 years. Yeah,
Yeah, once a year I could go through and change them. That's no problem.
yeah. It's really just a question of pulling them off. You can even use the same hole, but I've had things attached to a tree before, or you've probably seen it with barbed wire or wire on.
Yeah.
on-
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Especially on the farm.
right. You always find that with your chainsaw.
Yeah.
So, the other thing I was wondering, John, this sounds like a fine idea, but actually probably none of the trees are on West Newbury, town of West Newbury owned land. Wouldn't it be actually on land owned by the city of Newburyport around the reservoir?
Yes, it really isn't West Newbury land,
Yeah.
but since it's West Newbury town and people
Yep.
park out there and everything,
Yep.
I thought it was very important that you all knew what the intent was, how it was going to work. I would say that 2/3 of the signs are probably on my property because my
Yeah.
property abuts up to that roadway.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Great.
actually, there are probably only 3 or 4 of the signs that are on the reservoir side of the roadway. The rest of them are on Maple Crest Farm side of the roadway.
Yeah. Great. No, this is a neat public service. I think it's great.
John, does your land go right up to the edge of the paved part?
It's not paved. It's,
Well, yeah, I know what it is, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
as far as I know, I really, I really don't know. I mean, I go on it when I have to get to part of my fields or part of my wood area. But I know that if you step back probably 4, 5, 6 feet, that's where some of the trees are off the roadway. That's where most of them are, and a couple of them are right in a field that I mow, etc.
So
But
the city of Newburyport
Newburyport,
Water
I'm
Department
working
is all
with
good with this.
Newburyport. I'm sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted, because you were unsure where the property line is, and I know you said you've already talked with Newburyport, but I just wanted to confirm that their water department, who I assume is who actually controls that land, said, go ahead, go for it.
Oh, yeah, we have spoken. I talked to him on the telephone. And then I sent him an email today. Once we get the signs developed and we come up with the draft, then I'm going to show it to them so everybody knows exactly what it's going to look like. And then I think what we should do is have a time out there where we dedicate the signage so that the 2 kids get the appropriate recognition, involve the water department in it, involve your West Newbury Tree Committee chairperson who really knows his trees. We'd like to make it a little bit of an event, and especially for the kids to get the credit.
Sounds excellent. So I don't think we need to make any kind of motion or anything because it's
Yeah.
not really in our jurisdiction. But John, I appreciate you letting us know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, John.
Anything you can put on the signs of please pick up after your dogs?
Okay, we'll do that. There's a lot of picking up out there.
We're going to work on that.
That's okay. It's part of the world. But I'll tell you, that is a great location for people walking. Every day there are people. And last fall, I don't know if you know or not, but I planted some sunflowers along part of it. And I'll do it again this year. And a lot of people have commented to me when they see me, are you going to plant sunflowers again this year? I said, yeah, I will. I will.
Great.
Okay.
The next item on the agenda can also be passed over with no action because you had already voted to approve that
I
warrant.
thought so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, our next item is to change the committee charge and composition of the Energy Advisory Committee. Rick, you want to give us the Cliff Notes version on this?
Sure. The Energy Advisory Committee, as the name implies, has really focused on energy-related issues up to this point. There's a sort of a broader topic, which, the word generally uses sustainability, that applies to more than just energy. It applies to maintaining sort of continuity of other types of environmental related systems. So what the committee would like to do, I say we because I'm also on that committee, what the committee would like to do is expand the name to the the Energy and Sustainability Committee. Some of the other things we might look at is trying to promote composting in town, which would have positive effect in multiple ways. Besides potentially reducing our tipping costs for waste disposal, for municipal waste disposal, it can also be advantageous from the standpoint of building soils. we might, I know several years ago, the town had attempted to do something with rain barrels. It's another topic that the committee might look at. There are a pretty broad range of topics that will come up over time. So it just seemed to make sense to expand the name and the mission of the committee.
So, Rick, my only question is having, just in terms of sometimes getting stuff done with having a, up to 9 people, you think that is that too much?
Well, so the goal isn't necessarily to have 9 people, Archie, but we thought, for years we've been trying to get more people involved and really, more capability involved. So, that's why we phrased it up to 9 people. Currently there are 5 people on the committee.
Okay.
As we take on other projects, then having additional people would be good, both because of expertise and because of people's availability and bandwidth.
You could have subcommittees of, yeah, there's a lot of work. So I would make them.
That's what we currently do because there's another new committee or name change coming up here. The MVP group currently has multiple subcommittees working on specific topics that came out of the MVP process that we did in 2020.
Yep. So I'd make a motion that we would change the name and the charge of that committee to what Rick said.
Right. And
So the Energy and Sustainability Committee.
Correct.
A second. Further discussion? All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye. Thank you.
And just to be the bad cop, it still means we have to have minutes and agendas and
Absolutely. Actually, we've gotten pretty good at that. No thanks to me, but thanks to other people who have been diligent about writing good minutes and agendas.
Okay, is the next one, the next item, let's see. Yes, it is, okay. So the next item would be to change the name of the MVP working group to the Climate Change Resiliency Committee. And again, as Rick had said, with up to 9 members and and a simple majority for a quorum. The mission statement is quite lengthy, but excellent in this agenda. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read the whole mission statement, but I would make a motion to make this name change and mission change as in the agenda.
Second, Kemper.
So just as a quick, if you don't mind, Archie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. In the past or up to this point, the MVP group has not been formally designated as a committee and has been referred to alternately as the MVP working group or the MVP core team. It was pretty clear that at some point it needed to become, an official committee. We've already, again, no thanks to me, we've already been pretty good about minutes and posting agendas and, the legal requirements for a committee. So now that it will be a committee, that'll continue.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
So Rick, would it be appropriate to invite those who have already been involved to submit statement of interest, or is it sufficient to simply say they're all interested and maybe put that on a future agenda for appointment?
I think the latter would make sense. Yeah,
Yeah, we
everybody's
don't wanna-
clearly interested.
Yeah, we don't want to
already,
make,
and,
no need to make extra paperwork, so. And we're on
Right,
reappointment
yeah.
season
So,
anyway, and
Yeah,
just,
so
okay, so we can add that to the
Yeah.
April 26th agenda to appoint the current MVP working group members as a committee.
great, okay. And then, yeah, we had put that the appointment would, normally be June 30th, for the fiscal year. So I don't know how we'll want to handle it at the end of this fiscal year. If we appoint now, do we want to make the appointment effective through June 30, 2022? Well, I guess we can deal with that at the next meeting, but it seems to me that would make
So
sense.
I would think, yeah. Yeah. It's a
We don't
long,
want-
yeah.
We don't want to go through it again 5 weeks later, 6 weeks later.
right.
Great.
Great.
Our next item is just a sort of a formality in light of the present status, how the governor is calling the regulating gatherings. It seems like the Memorial Day parade cannot unfortunately go off as we would like. You could, Angus, when I read this, it seemed like I could interpret it that you could say this was a sort of a civic event that would maybe qualify as an exemption, but I'm just just playing devil's advocate. So in light of the the difficulty of scheduling at the last moment, and the fact that probably it isn't approvable anyway, that I think it's a moot point. Anyone want any comments about that?
Yeah, I don't have any comments. I think you're right, Archie.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, our next item is the CIC committee report on on capital items. I got to find the page.
Page 33.
Page 33. Okay. So in terms of the capital improvements committee, went over the 6 items that were sort of in their purview. The number one selected item in terms of the committee's recommendation was going forward with the Middle Street Bridge. Second was the Page School fire alarm, and third was the recoating of the roofs of the town buildings. Fourth was improvements to the existing water tank. Not the new tank, but the existing tank. And fifth was the new tanker truck for the fire department. And finally, the item that was rated the lowest, but still valuable, was the replacement of the jaws of life for the fire department.
So I know you've, I believe this was circulated earlier. We got this, I think, on March 28th. But because of the bylaw requiring it to be given to the selectmen at least 6 weeks prior to town meeting. We wanted to include it on tonight's agenda just so it's, shows up clearly in the record that it was timely delivered.
That's good. So, Angus, do you want to comment on the bridge project? Or not?
I probably have to, whether I want to or not. So as you know, this project's been a major focus going back for a couple of years, and we've been working with certain numbers of construction cost estimates. And a week ago tonight, we heard from the design engineer that their estimates of project costs have gone up quite substantially. So we knew and have said for the last few months that we thought the amount that we had talked about, was somewhat low, but we had no idea until a week ago, how low it might be. So the total project cost has now been revised upwards to including both construction and design and contingency has been revised upward to nearly $3.4 million from the prior 2.6. So a couple of important notes to that. The 2.6 million figure never included contingency. So that was always kind of artificially low because you would always include contingency on a project of this scale and with the number of variables. So right off the bat, adding contingency, and by the way, the 10% they've added, which on the construction cost would be $270,000, could even be seen as low. It might be better to include even a higher contingency than that, but that accounts for $270,000 of the increase. The primary driver of the increase in cost estimates, the prior cost estimate for construction was about 2.2. Now it's more like 2.5 million of an increase of about 335,000. That's really because of the passage of time. And at this point, the engineer's design, the cost estimate is not based on an order of magnitude cost, but based on detailed. They have, 100 pages of specific items and going through the weighted bid average from actual Mass DOT bid projects that are more recent. So basically, it's a better number in terms of being more accurate and more current, but it's a significant increase. The third major contributor to the increase in estimated costs is about $110,000 for the resident engineer. And we had a call with the designers earlier today, as well as with the city of Newburyport city engineer. And that is one area where there may be potential for cost savings if we were
Angus, can you explain that a little more? What is this person and what would they do?
Basically, yeah, it's like a clerk of the works who's the town's representative to oversee that the work in the field is done in accordance with the plan. And so the initial cost estimate had carried $40,000 for that, but on the basis of partly on the basis of an expectation that's come up through permitting that there would be daily inspections and daily monitoring, that would definitely increase that cost.
I mean, it seems really high.
It seems very high at $150,000 for the resident engineer to basically, visit the project every day and take reports of what's happening. And so, like I said, there's discussion, very preliminary at this point, but between myself and Wayne and John Eric Waite, the engineer in Newburyport, as to whether that's a function that could potentially be done, at least in part, by town staff. The problem that our engineer has seen with towns that have done that is it tends to overload. Towns don't tend to have like surplus staff who have nothing else to do than go look at a bridge every day. So it ends up being a capacity issue of who's actually going to do that, and do they have the time, and do they have the expertise. At the end of the day, it's about someone keeping the contractor honest, and you'd think you shouldn't have to, you know, if you're spending this kind of money, it's kind of unfortunate that there's the need to do that. But it is recommended, and the city engineer in Newburyport did recommend on a call earlier this afternoon, keeping that higher number in. Again, this is all, you know, this all needs to be agreed to, but and then the final driver of cost is some of the design work that's needed to happen in order to address some of the stormwater issues that have come out of the permitting process. That's added about $55,000 to the design costs. So all of that adds up to a bottom line of just about 3.4 million. And as much as that's not good news, even that increased number only carries a 10% contingency. And given the complexity of this project and some of the factors of, you know, may or may not be COVID related, but we're hearing about steel prices going up substantially and so forth. There's also concern about if this project wasn't to happen until, or wasn't to be put out to bid, let's say till next spring, and what if by that point there's potentially a federal infrastructure stimulus that puts a lot more money on the street, and therefore contractors aren't as hungry and not as incentivized to put in their best price on what would be seen as a relatively small project to them. That's where an increased contingency on the order of 20 or even 30% has been floated as potentially more solid. So you could go forward with a 10% contingency, but then if the bids come in higher than that, you know, people need to understand that the 10% is not a overly conservative contingency. It's a somewhat hopeful contingency. So here we sit, having gone through a lot of process and a lot of meetings, and you know, that prior recommendation that you just summarized, Archie, of the CIC recommendation for the amount toward this project out of stabilization. You know, we've been at this, just the budgeting process, for months, never mind a couple of years of work leading up to that. And so I think the question before the board tonight, and not necessarily to resolve tonight, but is, do we make an effort to go back this cycle, this town meeting cycle, to go back to FinCom, to go back to CIC, ultimately to go back to the voters with a number that's not 600,000, but that's more like 950,000, or potentially even more? Or do we, you know, one other option is we could have the engineers resume work. We have had them pause work for the time being to let this conversation play out, but we could have them resume work to carry it fully through the permitting and fully through the Mass DOT permit, which would be the last phase of permitting. So at the end, so we would at least have a fully permitted project. And I'm told most of these permits have a 3-year lifespan and can even be extended beyond that, typically without a whole lot of headache. So if we had all the permits in hand, at least we'd have something that would give us a project that we could potentially go after some of that federal infrastructure money to help bring more non-local funds to the table. But the other,
Angus, would that at that point, so the estimated design costs are 436 here. Would that be chewing through all of that at that point, or no?
no, we've got, because half of the Newburyport Small Bridge Grant, so about 250,000 of the 500,000 was allocated to design. And then I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but with the MassWorks grant, the $1 million we got.
It says 185.
Okay.
It says 185.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So we've got that covered with the grants that we have.
Right, but would if you got to this point, you still need the engineers to oversee the, they're gonna be, evaluating the footings or whatever, all the things they're gonna be doing. So would the 430 be used up before any construction had been done at all?
I believe so, because they're also carrying, construction phase services for the engineers in
Okay.
the resident engineer.
It's,
So, a big.
I have one other question. So
Yeah.
is it just coincidence, or did they pull this? It just seems odd that the number comes out 2,485,000. It comes out exactly 2.5 million. Is that just a coincidence, or is this really a legitimate number, or just a number that they just picked out of the air?
No, they didn't pick it out of the air. I mean, you can see they rounded to that, the actual math is
Yeah,
$50, $50 or 50.
15,000, but yeah.
Yeah. Like $5,300 or anyhow, $500, $600. So they round it to, 2.485. But no, this is based on actual, those unit prices and those quantities that you see, and the item numbers are all referenced to actual Mass DOT, weighted bid averages of what's actually has been from bid processes. So we did have a call with Newburyport. Obviously, that's a huge factor in this project, as it has been right along. Is if West Newbury was to bend over backwards and try to bring this back through the process, even though I don't even know if that's possible at this late stage, remind ourselves that it's basically 3 weeks from now, the FinCom book has to be published. I mean, that's how close we are to, we just do not have to be scheduling extra meetings and going back through that process. I don't even know if it's even possible, to say nothing of all the time that would be diverted from other things that have to get done in the next 3 weeks. But we could do all of that, and then Newburyport doesn't meet us halfway, and then we're nowhere. So much of this depends on what's Newburyport's response to this new information. Will the mayor's office propose an increase in her budget for next year or not? And so, we had a call with the city today. We don't have an answer to that question, and I don't know when we will have an answer. But what we are going to do as kind of an immediate step, if we can, is we'd like to get someone from DOT to take a close look at these numbers and see if they concur with the amount. And we're hoping to get that done in the next 1 to 2 weeks. That's going to be a tall order, because, the people qualified to do this are obviously busy with other things too. So it's a matter of, but the state at this point's put $1.5 million, at least committed $1.5 million toward it. So the hope is that they can help at least, validate the numbers that we have. We think they're credible. We think, and let me be clear, our engineer is they're a very respected firm. They're a very credible firm, and we feel the numbers are good. We are deeply unhappy that we just learned a week ago, and we certainly made that very clear. But in terms of kind of the credibility of the numbers, we think they're very credible. We just wish we would have known even 2 or 3 months ago would have made a big difference.
Angus, when does the MassDOT grant, I guess actually it's Mass, let me see, Newburyport got MassDOT Small Bridge, and we have a MassWorks grant, the $1 million grant. And at some point that turns into a pumpkin. What's the, how long is that good for?
That's the end of FY23. But that could be, as long as there was substantial progress, I mean, there's no guarantees, but I don't think it would be a big problem to extend that if the project is going forward.
Angus, unless it's a
Yeah.
typo, you've got May 2022 here.
Where do I have that?
The little thing that shows, the little thing that looks like an award, the,
Oh, okay, I didn't produce this. Okay, so yeah, oh, okay, it's just 22. All right, I had that, I was too optimistic
so
about.
it's a year.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
But I would think that, yeah, they would give us if we would, moving forward, I think they would extend it.
Well, another thing that occurs to me is that if there's any similarity between the ERA program, back in 2009, 2010 timeframe, where they were looking for what were then called shovel-ready projects. If the design and permitting for this is done, and if there is new federal grant money available, for the infrastructure, for an infrastructure program, then this will be about as shovel-ready as you could possibly have, and which, I think would make it pretty likely, if there are grant programs, it'd be pretty likely to be an attractive target.
Yeah, we don't know, obviously, first of all, that hasn't
I
passed yet. And we don't know whether that would apply to, municipal roads as opposed to interstate highways, that kind of thing. We don't know we don't know what the rules will even be, but it's certainly something to think about. Yeah.
Right.
My feeling is that, no, we don't, at the moment, we don't change anything. We don't try and look for more money from the.
I tend to agree because, as you know, it's not just the expenditure or the authorization out of stabilization. It's also, this was a key input into the amount recommended to put into stabilization, which has also gone through CIC and Selectboard. So the idea of, somehow redoing those numbers, I don't think, I think we're comfortable recommending the 700,000 that's currently recommended to go into stabilization out of free cash. But I don't know that we'd be comfortable going much beyond that without really, jeopardizing the health of our free cash balance. So there's just a lot, it's just too late, in my opinion, to do something dramatic in terms of trying to increase the appropriation. If that ends up being the will of the board, then I think a follow-on question would be, do we continue to go forward seeking the 600,000, even if we know that that's not going to be enough?
My feeling is we should go ahead with the existing 600,000, and we just don't have time to figure out the rest of the story right now. But we should go ahead with what we've done up to this point. If for some reason we end up not building the bridge, then the money can be put back. But I think we should try to move ahead and obviously look for ways to correct the situation.
Right. I mean, this isn't like $600 more or something. I just did it's a 57% increase on the 600,000. That makes you have to look at it in terms of the hit to the town of West Newbury. That's a huge number, and it has to give us pause up to, okay, stop and we don't even know if this is the end number with that either. So we're not throwing the money away. We haven't spent any of that 600,000. So let's just we put it there, and then we have to reassess about whether the whole project is viable at again a 57% increase to the town, and maybe even more. So I think that we go forward with what we planned, but we certainly don't increase it at the moment.
I would agree.
Angus, what did the design, BSC, what did the design firm have to say about why they dropped this bombshell?
I think it's the contingency alone, is significant, but to get to like I said, they gave, it's, more detailed, basis of cost estimate, the contingency added, the resident engineer and the design. They did send me late today, they got this in at about 5:30. So I haven't even looked at it. I'll forward this around to the board, but they've included a more detailed breakdown of exactly how they got there. I made it really, I don't want to get into all the details, but they've been very well aware and very well informed over the last many, many months of our timeline, of the process we need to go through, of the warrant articles we were producing, of the reviews that those needed by committees, to say nothing of the mayor and the capital program that just hit the newspaper, a week and a half ago. To get this information like 4 days after that hits the newspaper, obviously it would have been nice to have that information even a month or 2 months. So I think the timing is terrible. And we've made that very clear, that put all of us in a really bad spot. That's not their intent, but I would expect on the next project they do, they'd perhaps listen more closely when the client lays out the timelines that we have to work with to get things to town meeting. We needed this information months ago, and we had it I had it in an email very plainly months ago. These are the numbers we are using. Are these the right numbers? And they did say, well, we think it's going to go up. But as I told them in the note I sent them last week, we had no indication that we were talking about a greater than 50% increase. And someone should have told us that long before last Monday.
Okay.
All we can do is do the best we can, move on. And I would agree with Archie and Rick in saying that we should follow the path that we've already set forth and have that money in there. And if something doesn't happen, we can always then reallocate that money. But I would think that it's important to, stay the course at this point.
There's an appropriate old movie title, a World War II movie, A Bridge Too Far.
So in terms of just because, as you know, they're at least temporarily in a holding pattern. From what I'm hearing, it sounds like everybody does agree we should have them resume design services and re-engage for the permitting. It's just a couple of days that have been lost. But as you know, we're in the midst of Concom hearings with communities. And based on what I'm hearing, my intent would be to let them know that they can go ahead and resume design services.
I agree with that.
Yes.
I would too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. The next item is the FY22 budget and the FinCom recommendations. So they haven't approved this is basically for informational purposes, Angus, because they haven't approved every line item yet or anything.
Correct. They've approved all but about I think 7 sections that are on tomorrow night's Finance Committee agenda. So coming out of tomorrow night's meeting, the expectation is they will have acted on every section of the operating budget. There are a couple of articles that they will not take up tomorrow. One being the Coffin Street proposal, because CPC doesn't recommend till Thursday. So I think FinCom is not going to want to take that up before CPC makes its recommendation. And then, as you know, there's a couple of placeholder articles that the Select Board have put on there where we haven't filled in the blank yet on the amount, including, for instance, the OPEB stabilization and the unbudgeted personnel costs. So obviously FinCom can't take action on those until we fill in the blanks. But other than that, their budget review process has gone very smoothly. They've made a couple of adjustments, but for the most part have recommended most sections of the budget as proposed. There have been some good discussions, and I put in your packet a summary of the articles that they've taken action on and those that remain still to be recommended.
Okay, I think let's go right on to item J, the annual and special town meeting warrant articles. And let's, our next meeting will be the joint meeting with the FinCom, so we can, so they can see where we're at and where they're at, and so they can have the answers for the booklet. They have voted on several articles already. I think it would be in our best interest if the other board members agree that I think it would be in our best interest to knock off several of these to get some of these voted right now. Glenn and Rick, are you okay with that?
I was muted. I'm fine with that, Archie.
I'm fine with that too, Archie.
Okay, so let's on page 56, let's start with in the special town meeting, let's excuse me, start with the Article 2 to see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds the sum of $33,000 for all costs and expense pertaining to the repair and replacement of the fire alarm system at the Page School. So this was some additional costs related to the upgrading of the fire alarm system there that because of the having to work when school was not in session, that added was one of the reasons that the costs were a little bit more than had initially been planned. So most of the money had been expended, but this is slight additional cost to finish it up and related to having to work out of school hours. Is that correct, Angus?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So I would make a motion to approve Article 2.
Second.
Further discussion, all in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Okay.
Kemper, aye.
Article 3 is, I'll try to be as brief as possible. 105,000 approximately for costs related to the repair and restoration of the West Newbury Town Hall. We've all seen the town hall lately. The paint is peeling quite badly. It needs some woodwork too. This was approved 4-0 by the FinCom, and this would be money from CPA funds. So I would make a motion to approve Article 3.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
And Parker, aye.
Next one is 30,000 in CPA funds for expenses pertaining to the design and construction of an all-access trail commonly referred to as the Whetstone Greenway between River Meadow Drive and Sullivan's Court Extension. The FinCom has not voted on this one yet, and the CPC has, obviously, because it's on here, has approved this. For the sake of discussion, I would make a motion to, excuse me, to approve this article.
I'll second.
Discussion. I mean, my comment is this, I've ridden my bike across this area a couple of times. Had to pick up my bike a little bit. It's a little bit wet, a few areas, but 30,000 seems really high. That's maybe that's what it costs, but that's my back of the envelope assessment. Seems like a lot of money.
He was so proud of himself. I know. He stops and claps for himself. And he looks at you, he's like.
How are the, I mean,
Sorry,
Glenn, you're muted.
I just muted you by accident, Glenn. Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button.
who's giving us these numbers? I mean, do you feel confident with these numbers, or are they just like inflated just to make sure we don't go over?
Well, it's hard to know. I mean, Rick is on the CPC as well. So Rick, I don't want to speak for you on this, but I can tell you there's not a design plan. There's not like an engineered plan that is based on, nor have I seen anything that's really even a concept plan other than just the general location. So, you know, I think there have been some questions about whether the number might be too high or even might be too low, you know, once it's fully designed.
Yeah, so, you know, these numbers were primarily put together by Brad Boucher. And, you know, based on his, you know, professional experience, this is similar to work that is done by his organization. And, you know, so I think what he did essentially is, you know, use his experience and his judgment from his experience. And yeah, there is some concern. I've heard from at least one person who is hoping that the numbers are high enough because the cost of pressure treated lumber has skyrocketed. And, you know, Brad seems pretty confident that the number is okay. But, you know, there is, you know, at least there is somebody who has that concern.
So there you go, Archie. There goes your, you might think it's high, just we don't know how much things cost, like in the field like that, so. And if the money's not spent, it gets, you know, it's not like, it is what it is. It's not like they're gonna spend up to 30, but it's good to have that money available just in case it is a little bit higher. I mean.
So is this from the recreation part of CBC, Rick?
Yes,
Okay.
recreation open space.
Yeah, and the total estimated project cost also, there's an additional 10,000 that's already in the town's possession that was held from the Sullivan's Court Extension developer. So the 30,000 is supplemented by that 10.
Okay. Okay, did anyone second? Oh, I guess, yes.
It's been moved in
Rick
second.
seconded.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been moved in second and we're in discussion.
Yeah, okay. Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Next item, we don't know what it is, so perhaps we have to pass that over. But I feel I would, I'm going to approve it pretty much whatever it is, unless it's $8 million. So it's the snow and ice deficit for 2021.
It is what it is. I mean.
Yeah, the FinCom recommended approval of this item 3-1. So I'd make a motion to approve Article 5 to approve the snow and ice deficit for 2021.
I'll second that for discussion. Do we have any preliminary numbers? Has Wayne said anything?
Yeah, we do. Stephanie, do you happen to have that handy? Or if not, maybe we could circle back in a few minutes. Yeah, we included.
And we must know
Yeah.
how many invoices are out.
We included a number in the FinCom packet. I didn't think to put it in here, but we did have a number that we put in front of them. And I know we had a number of invoices last week, and I think there's, and Wayne knows how many are outstanding. So Stephanie, do we have an updated number?
Give me 1 minute to look for it and I will get back
Okay.
to you guys. I had to
Okay,
go through my
let's,
email.
let's
Thank
hold
you.
off on that and go on to the next one.
But just a quick comment, I guess your option here is if you don't pay it and you stiff the vendors and you hope you never have a winter again.
I think Glenn's just looking for just.
I know, I was just.
Yeah.
No, I was just,
No, I mean, order of
It is what it
magnitude.
is.
Yeah.
yeah, I was just curious. And no, you have to pay your bills anyway, so it'll come off our cherry sheet or whatever they do. I mean, so we can't ever get away from it, but I'm just curious. That's it.
Yeah. No, it's good. I was actually, it was supposed to be humorous, Glenn, sorry.
That's fine. I mean, we're probably gonna get another storm.
That's not humorous.
On May 22nd. To see if the town will, this Article 6, transfer $3,137 to fund the Essex Agricultural Technical School FY21 budget deficit. So,
So moved.
yeah,
Second,
all in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Can I interject something here?
Yes,
Number one is I expect that the next meeting you'll have the town clerk and obviously the town moderator on for discussion of the warrants, like we be prior to it.
Yep.
Okay. The second thing is that if we intend to move forward with the consent budget, then we should amend the warrants where, we talk about transfer from available funds, but to be very specific for where the funds will be coming from for each warrant article.
I would agree with that.
okay.
All right, so if you are considering going with a consent, because it is your warrant agenda, then we have to go through and select, funding sources as part of the warrant article.
And are you looking for us to do that tonight, or are you looking for us?
Well,
to do that-
usually you
next
do
week.
it tonight. I mean, usually
Yeah,
you do it
when
we
we're
vote.
approving it. Yeah, I was actually, it seemed like I was thinking of that in the back of my head, but then Archie was pretty good when I was thinking about it. Then we had the two CPA articles, so that was the funding. So I got a little bit lazy. So where's this $3,000 coming from?
It's coming from free cash. So if you, in the FinCom packet, I know I throw a lot of paper at you guys, but in the FinCom packet, there is the one that I sent out on Friday. There is a summary of town account, impact on town accounts, and that shows for every article what the anticipated funding source is. And I wish to put that in the select board packet. I didn't. But it's in there on page 24 of the FinCom packet. So for every article, and
So why don't you just tell us Angus,
yeah,
so
okay, yeah,
we
okay,
can make
so-
it, public at this meeting. So when
Yeah.
Archie reads it, you can tell us what the source is. if
yeah, and
it's in-
actually this shows as of on the snow and ice, it was about 23,500 as of March 22nd. I know it's higher now because
Wow.
we had a few invoices come through last week's warrant.
That's low.
Substantial. Yeah, there were some larger invoices last week, so I know it's higher than that.
Yeah, but even if it's 15 or 20,000, that's still pretty low, I think, isn't it? From previous years? Well, how much did we have it in the line item?
150.
Yeah, same amount. Yeah, okay, whatever. Okay,
Last year, we had no snow and we had a substantial deficit.
yeah, it was a lot of ice, though. That was the problem.
Yeah.
So I can tell you from now, the rest of the special town meeting warrant, from snow and ice through the end, those are all free cash, at least as I've written it in. So You could change
Okay.
that, but that's how it's all penciled in right now.
Okay. Um. Okay, we're on, so we,
Article 7, I think.
we're on 7. Um. Transfer from free cash, $287.57 to resolve a deficit resulting from an over expenditure of funds from the World War II Gym Stabilization Fund that occurred in 2016. Is this something that is like a
2/3 vote,
9/10
isn't it?
vote or something, or no?
It's actually a 9/10 vote.
That's what, yeah,
Ooh.
that's what I said. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, motion to approve?
Second,
All in favor? Aye.
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 8. From, I assume from free cash, $3,948.03 to resolve deficits for expired grants that did not close out properly in FY 2018 and FY 2019. Stephanie, can you just give us like a couple sentences about this? What's going on here?
Sure. So when I came on board to the town of West Newbury, there were several grants that had deficits in it. And I just want, it's kind of like some housekeeping. What happened is some items got rejected and they were not, the funding to the grant was not charged back to the general fund. And also some revenue came in and it was deposited into the general fund miscellaneous non-reoccurring, and it should have hit the grant. And once we close for audit, I don't have any ability to take the funding that has come in from a previous year and move it over to the grant expenditures. So it hits free cash every year with a deficit until I do some housekeeping and we move some revenue in to cover those items.
So in other words, it's not that, it's not as bad as it appears. In other words, that the grant overspent, it's just that somehow the inflow from the grant didn't get credited to the grant.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
So Stephanie, would this be considered to be an over expenditure of the account? Or, I mean, if not, I mean, if it's just a accounting thing, then we can only, I mean, the difference is the quantum of voting. Is that if it wasn't an over expenditure, then we'd probably only need a majority vote.
Well,
Why don't-
technically, it's on the books and it looks like an over expenditure right now,
Why don't we
Because the
give that
way
up
it
to
all-
the,
the way it all played out.
why don't we have our town moderator decide that?
No, but that's not the question, Glenn, because again, it would be, it'd come back to me, because then the question is, if it's an over expenditure of an appropriation, then it would have to be a higher percentage vote. If it was,
No, I understand.
yeah, I mean, if it was
So
not,
okay, so you're the one who makes the determination, or I thought
Right.
she was. That's it. Okay, then you need to make the determination.
which is why I asked the question.
Sounds, Mike, like it was not an over expenditure, but simply misplacement of funds into the wrong
It-
account. So,
Exactly. Because the revenue is, the revenue did close out to free cash. So I wouldn't technically consider it an over expenditure at this point in time from all the research that I've conducted.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the point, is that
Yeah.
you need the higher majority when somebody has spent more than they should have. But if the amount of the grant would have covered this, then I would rule that it would only be a majority vote needed.
Okay.
Okay.
Because we had the money, basically, is
I
the
agree.
bottom line. Yeah.
However, the article before, the World War II article, that was, it appears that was an over expenditure, but you could go both ways with that, depending on how the accounting was handled. Several years back. I think it was in 2015 that occurred.
if we can't get a 9/10 vote for
Exactly.
$287.57, then we've got bigger problems.
Okay. All right, so we'll call that a majority vote.
Okay, the FinCom had approved this 4-0. It's been moved and seconded. Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Article 9, Angus, do you want us to skip over that for the moment?
Well, I suggest making your recommendation at the next meeting, not tonight, but I do just want to draw your attention to the page 63 and 64 of your packet. This information came in, I think in the second part of Friday, or I think well, it must have been late morning because I was able to get it in the packet, but I would, yeah, it's basically, you know, if all goes well with these clinics, we should be fully made whole, whether by CARES Act, by FEMA funding, or by intermunicipal reimbursement of expenses. You know, for instance, with Amesbury, if they're billing insurance, that the expectation would be they would reimburse our costs from their revenue. So if all goes well, we should not have any taxpayer-funded expenses. The issue is sometimes things don't go well. And so, you know, it's helpful to have some amount of money as a backstop to that, because as we speak, you know, funds are being committed, whether that's through purchases of supplies and equipment related to the regional clinics, or whether that's through staff costs for overtime that's going through payroll from, you know, some of the departments. So I had recommended to Health a couple of months ago that we put a placeholder article on as a backstop. We just got the backup and the proposed amount on Friday, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to really process it, nor even to review it with Health. So I would recommend holding off to make a vote. But if you have questions that you want to ask, that would be good, and then I can make sure to get those answers for you. Or you could pass it over tonight, and then if you have questions, you can email me in the next couple of days.
Thoughts, anybody? What do we want to do?
Let's talk about it next meeting.
Okay,
I mean, what is there to do? I mean, there's a bunch of unanswered questions, and, well, my point being is that I don't think we need an article for it at all, that we have proper funding that we have anticipated. And if that funding doesn't come forward, then they need to go in front of the FinCom for a reserve fund transfer. That would be my recommendation, but we can talk about it next meeting. There's no need, you know, we're anticipating that we're going to be made whole, so we don't need the article. So if that doesn't happen, then you go in front of the FinCom.
So the article, the amount that we would need to be made whole on would be, at least based on this, you know, something like $100,000, between 100 and 110,000, correct?
Well, that's the number that was put in, but it, that's where.
Yeah, but that's not.
It shouldn't, I mean, that kind of, the way that's written doesn't appear to assume any reimbursement, when in fact, you know, we think it's ought to be fully reimbursed. So I think that's a high number. I think, you know, the way the health agent is thinking about it, I believe, is that, you know, he says, well, you know, there's no harm, it's a big number, but if it's not spent, it all goes back anyway. I'm not sure. I mean, that's, you know, typically we would.
Or if we appropriate this, maybe towns or whomever might say, oh, they've already appropriated it, we don't have to reimburse them.
Yeah.
that's a good thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, I'm not, you know, personally prepared to kind of vouch for that number.
Yeah. Okay. No, I guess my point in asking that is that would be a pretty big line item transfer, wouldn't it?
Well, it would exceed.
Well,
what
no, yeah,
budgeted
yeah,
for.
I would agree with that, Rick.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I should have qualified that because I would assume that something would have been, you know what I mean? I didn't
Yeah.
think, you're right. I would agree with that.
Okay, well, yeah, I think we should take it up next time too, and even know a little bit more then.
We may have more info.
I think we will. Yeah, and this goes to FinCom. Board of Health meets with FinCom tomorrow night, so I know they'll have a lot of questions as well on this.
Okay,
Archie, may I give you an update on the snow and ice number?
okay,
I apologize for the delay. I had to fire up my laptop here. So the current deficit as of last week was 67,706. I did reach out to Wayne on Friday to see if there was any more invoices coming in. He believes there may be up to just 2 more on a vendor that he was waiting for, a contractor.
okay.
Thanks, Stephanie.
So I did, by my notes on Article 5, snow and ice, we had Archie motion, Glenn had seconded, and then no vote was taken pending that information. So I don't know if you want to take that vote.
Further discussion on Article 5? Okay, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Thanks.
Article 11, 18,000 for costs and expenses pertaining to the replacement of the public safety network server. It was approved 5-0 by the FinCom. That would be from free cash. My only comment on this is hopefully there's some way of having a completely separated, excuse me, backup system that old fashioned, just a just a separate hard drive or something that can be, so that we don't have to, at least this part of the town can be isolated from potential hacking. I mean, simple solutions. I've read a lot of things about this, and simple solutions can work. Just backing it up on a hard drive that someone then puts in the closet and is not connected to the internet, no one can hack that. Okay, so I'd make a motion to approve this article.
Second,
Discussion. All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Article 12, to see if the town will raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds, I assume from free cash, to fund 15,000 to fund consulting support towards compliance in the stormwater management permit issued to the town by the EPA. This was approved 4-0 by the FinCom. I would make a motion to approve this.
Second,
This is kind of a no-brainer. We have to deal with this report. Any help we can get is 15,000 seems small money. We have to do this. So I feel we have to approve this.
And I think the board knows this, but the major work product anticipated for this is the stormwater bylaw.
Archibald, aye.
how far along, where do things stand on the stormwater bylaw? Wasn't this?
It's something that's been in circulation to some degree among staff, among our stormwater working group, which is myself, Wayne, the town planner, the conservation agent, and to some extent the health agent and building inspector, but primarily the first 4 that I mentioned. Leah's done some work to try to share a draft. It's incredibly technical. It's probably 25 pages. And the work to basically get our existing bylaws and regulations for looking for overlap or inconsistency, it just goes beyond what anybody on staff has been able to find the time to do. You know, so we've made in 3 cycles now, we've made good faith efforts with the staff capacity we have to bring forward a bylaw. And in 3 straight town meeting cycles, we failed. We do not have the bandwidth to do this in-house. I wish we did. We have the skill set. Either me or Leah could do this if we had 60 hours or 80 and nothing else to do, but we just don't have the time.
Yeah.
And by our permit, we were supposed to have it done by June 30th. So we really need to bring something to the fall meeting.
Have potential accountants been identified? Or not accountants, I mean consultants? Potential consultants?
You know, there's a number that are well regarded in the field that we've, but you know, I think once we have a scope, we would circulate it. You know, we'd welcome any proposal.
Okay, so that you think that 15,000 though is a reasonable number?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some, you know, we had one vendor quote a number that was almost double that, but we don't think we definitely think you can get a stormwater. There's so many templates out there. It really comes down to some of the key policy questions that I know we've talked about before. Does it apply townwide or just in the urbanized area? One of the single biggest and most thorniest questions is who enforces it, who writes the permits, who's holding the public hearings, who's doing the abutter notices, how is it actually going to be implemented? And typically that tends to be a planning board or a Concom, but that there's nothing to say it couldn't be a board of health. It could even, there's models out there where it's done administratively, where a DPW actually administers it, but that's kind of where the rubber hits the road. Who's actually going to do the work to implement and enforce the bylaw? And that entails going to meetings and meeting with Concom and meeting with planning board. And, you know, and those are the things that there's just nobody who has the time. It's not just writing the bylaw, it's actually working through who's actually going to do the work. And that's not going to be easy because, you know, those departments are somewhat constrained.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. I voted in affirmative.
Parker, aye. Glenn?
I'm coming.
I think we just lost.
Glenn voted with his feet.
He fell in the storm drain. Okay.
Well, we got 2 out of 3. So,
Yeah, we can go back if we need to.
right.
Okay. So the next article has not been voted yet by the FinCom. It's to see if the town will transfer from available funds, I'm assuming free cash, $9,050 Glenn's back to fund costs related to an accessing department network server. Angus, we need a little more your thoughts on this.
Well, I'm told that it's needed, and Jake tells me it's needed. It's a separate network server that they have, and other than the write-up that I did circulate a write-up a couple of packets ago.
Right.
So I haven't gotten real hands-on with it, but other than confirming that Jake.
So it was no, but it wasn't the question of, do we go with a different vendor, software vendor versus a new server versus, so, yeah.
Yeah. So no, we would stick with the existing software, the existing vendor, and this would just be the server. So earlier in the process, there was a proposal more on the order of 20,000 that would have also included changing to a different software. But the Board of Assessors was not supportive of that. So what you have in front of you is just the proposal for the upgraded server.
Okay.
I thought from that earlier discussion that that they needed to upgrade the software to a newer version from the same, if they were going to stick with the same software vendor. I thought that they needed to upgrade to a newer version. Is that wrong?
No, you're not wrong, but it's not. Well, I guess I would just say it's not need. There is some pressure from the vendor to start moving in that direction.
Okay.
But I don't believe we need to do that right away. That is something that's coming down the road.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even something I was even aware of until the new assessor came on board just in the last few months. So it's not something that had been talked about by the prior assessor. So,
Glenn, when you went off for a second, we did vote to approve the 15K from free cash for the stormwater.
Yeah, I would vote to approve that also for the record.
Okay.
I hit the wrong button and I canceled everything out rather than hit unmute.
Okay.
So it took me offline.
Okay, so now we're talking about a new server for the assessors. I'd make a motion, given Angus's information to approve.
Second,
Further discussion? All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Okay. Article 14, transfer from free cash 8,500 to fund costs to conduct a utility property evaluation, analysis, or report. This is by the request of the Board of Assessors. If you remember, by doing so, we may be able to get a reevaluation of utilities physical property in the community, and thereby increase the utilities assessment, and thereby perhaps capture some increased tax revenue from the utilities such as National Grid. But in order to do this, we have to get the consultant and to help with doing this, and there is some amount of work that's involved. The assessors feel that we have a good chance of success with this, and the idea being, if we spend 8,500, perhaps we'll get considerably more back from that in tax revenue. So I would make a motion to approve this item.
Second,
Second that. In discussion?
Yeah,
So, I mean, essentially, what this will do is it'll transfer some of the tax liability to the utility. I mean, ultimately the tax revenue is going to be the same number, right? But it would shift more of the burden to the utilities if their assessments went up.
yeah, hopefully. I mean, is it gonna drop everyone's tax bill $500? No. I think we have to be realistic, but
Right. I just wanted to be clear that it wasn't like we had, some new golden egg that we were going to be receiving.
right. See, just so that anybody that's listening, so if someone has if National Grid has or Verizon have a telephone pole, a light pole that has been depreciated to zero, even though it's been, because it's several years old, it's actually not worthless. It has a value because it's generating income for the utility. So thereby, it should, in that sense, have property tax value, and that's the basis behind this, trying to get a reevaluation on these assets.
Yeah, so I think what the reevaluation does is it looks at that revenue generating potential for each asset, and it's a different type of formula for determining the value based on its income generation, right?
Correct, yeah. And we're not reinventing the wheel. Other communities have done this, and I'm not sure of the details, but for some reason, the sooner we do this, the better. I don't know.
That's right. Yeah, the sooner we can capture that new value, and the rationale of putting it on the special town meeting is the vendor that had submitted an estimate to the assessing last cycle had said that they would normally start their work in June. So if the funding is approved, they could start the work and potentially, get it done for the fall valuation.
Oh, okay. Okay, Archibald, aye.
Parker, aye. Glenn, did we lose Glenn again?
No, I'm here. You can hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
now.
Kemper, aye.
okay. 3-0 on Article 14. Article 15, to see if the town will transfer from free cash the sum of $7,000 for all costs and expenses pertaining to mapping, identifying, remediating invasive species on public lands. Request by the, now I have to know the new name of the group, but
Climate Change Resiliency Committee.
okay.
Should I change that in the warrant, Rick?
That would probably be a good thing to do. Good point.
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay.
I'd move to approve that.
Second. Further discussion? All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Rick, what was the one problem we were anticipating was being able to identify a couple of interns soon enough, or how's that going to be resolved?
Yeah, so I'll give you a quick update. The committee is working on a description. Angus has been involved in the conversation as far as how we're going to actually advertise. So, in fact, quite honestly, I haven't had a chance to look at my personal email at all today. So, there may even be an email right now with that finalized version of the description. If not, it should be available shortly, and then that'll be forwarded to Angus for posting on the town website. We'll have to talk about how else we're going to post it locally, and yeah, I guess that's about all.
Okay. Would we give preference to local individuals, or I don't know?
Well, my personal take on that is that we should. Legally, I'm not sure how much, because it's public money. I don't know how much
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
preference we can give, but what we can do is we can advertise locally where local people are going to see it before it's seen elsewhere.
Okay.
If we end up with somebody who's a student who's highly competent and has, we believe, particular qualifications, and they don't happen to live in West Newbury, I don't think we should turn our heads.
Right. I don't think we can. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay, on to the annual town meeting. Article 3 is whether we want to give instructions in regulations to the Board of Water Commissioners. We may do so on that.
I would say we highly recommend to do something like that. And we should have a good discussion on what we're going to say.
Right. Angus, do we have any numbers for Article 4?
We did get a proposed budget from the Water Commission Friday afternoon after this packet had closed out. It is part of the FinCom packet that I sent out Friday night, but didn't get into this packet. So the FinCom will review that tomorrow night. The major change is the proposed creation of a third full-time position with the proposed addition of a second licensed operator.
In that proposal, do they have, with the FinCom proposal, or at least could the FinCom ask what their anticipated water rates are, how much they're going to increase?
Yeah, I expect that to be part of the discussion. And the issue is, or one of the things, at least for FY22, you may remember that the water rates that were approved about, I guess in either November, December 2019, so a little over a year ago, had included the full debt service for the 1.1 million. But the 1.1 million right now is just bond anticipation notes, which is just interest only payments. So as a result, the current water rate carries more than has been needed in last year or this year or FY22 for debt service. So I believe that's going to mean the impact in FY22 on water rates would be fairly modest, if, maybe not even anything. But in FY23, that's what you need to look at, because that's when that 1.1 million is going to be long-term debt, and that is going to make that amount of payment increase by about $55,000 or $60,000 in not next year, but the second year.
What are they doing with the money that they've been taking in that they didn't need? They've been putting that hopefully in some type of a account to be able to pay the debt down at that time?
So they are proposing, so their free cash balance as at the end of FY20 was over $1 million. They're proposing 500,000 of that to be transferred into water stabilization, and they're proposing 270,000 on the pipe stave tank repair. So that would bring the water free cash balance down around 200 and some change. So they are looking to put it into, put 500,000 into water stabilization for capital projects.
Angus, you said the pipe stave tank, isn't it the paid school tank?
Oh, I did. Yeah.
It's the same. Yeah.
Tank. Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, but to make things a little bit cleaner for the people that are paying these water bills. So they made a mistake, maybe we could call it, or something, and put on the total amount for that debt service on our water bills. Collecting that money and not using it all because the debt hasn't even been issued yet. Do they even know how much they've collected that's been an error? I mean, I don't want to start a whole big thing here, but if we want to talk about making, we're making sure $3,000 for a proper grant and this is transferred properly because that's sound accounting, and which I would agree with. Wouldn't the water rate payers want to know how much money they've been paying and not have to pay because of money? Okay, you understand my point, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to keep on going on. So how much money is there? And it's compounded on top of compounded because of the increases. So I don't know. I mean, what does our auditor say about that?
It was something that definitely came up in the FY20 audit, the fact that the earnings were so significantly above expenses in the water fund in FY20.
So couldn't that be, Angus, when the projects actually go out to bid, okay, the bond, why couldn't that money that was collected for those 2 or 3 years, I can't quite figure out what it is, 2 or 3 years, that overage that was collected for those years, why couldn't that immediately be put on the principal and thereby lowering the bond, the amount that needs to be borrowed immediately, thereby the annual borrowing expense to the ratepayers is lower each year going forward, and the debt service is lower and the total debt is lower. Why apply it to something that was not really what it was intended for? Why not apply it to the forthcoming debt?
I would agree with that.
That could certainly be done. I think, as part of this is the, over the years, the water department, including its process of rate setting, has been really almost entirely independent of the town. And I think that certainly could be done, what you've just suggested.
Yeah, it could be done, but what teeth do we have? Do we have none? Are we solely at the mercy of the water commissioners to decide that?
Not necessarily. I mean, that, perhaps that could come up under the Article 3.
We have Article 3.
Instructions.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I think to make a note on that when we have that discussion, that we should talk about that and see if we're in agreement to bring that up at town meeting.
But and related to that, it has surprised me since day one that there's not actually a public hearing to set rates for water. I feel like that ought to be an advertised public hearing with broad advance notice, and that has not been the case over the years. So that's another thing that could be considered under Article 3.
That's great.
The two excellent points. So the take-home message is, what do we want to do with 4? Just hold off. Glenn, what?
Yeah, I would recommend hold off until you have the numbers in front of you. So
yeah, we don't have the numbers
for the 26th. We'll add that.
I don't think we ever want to approve something
And
like
5
that.
is related to the same thing. Yeah. And 6 sort of is.
Yeah, but I just noticed that's got the same, that also says pipe save tank. So I'll change that to page school tank, which was, I've heard it referred to as the pipe save tank, but anyhow, we'll call it the page school tank.
We all know what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, that's the most important.
Yeah.
So you want to hold off on all those water articles to the 26th?
Yes.
Great.
Article 7, see if the town will raise or appropriate, I would say in this case, from free cash, $76,261 for the pension liability stabilization fund. So this is 10% of our actual Essex County retirement fund assessment. This is 10% of that. The town is doing this in trying to lower their overall ongoing pension liability that every city and town in the Commonwealth has to deal with. So we're being proactive in this case. Last year, we didn't know what was going on with how the budget was going to be with COVID. So we took a time out on doing this last year, but I believe it's appropriate to take it up again this year. It's certainly something that if we're going to be borrowing money in the future, um, credit rating agencies like this in the town, that the town is doing this, so. And that the FinCom approved this for 0. So I make a motion to approve Article 7.
Second,
Further discussion? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker,
Article 8, similar situation. Voluntarily, we have a so-called slight deficit in our OPEB funding due to the way our actuarial analysis the last couple of years has sort of changed the goalposts on how they evaluate the town. Also, it reflects different demographics of our employees and our retirees. We are not in trouble. We are still the most funded OPEB account of any community in the Commonwealth. But I would say we can go either way on this, but my feeling is we put we have significant free cash that we put a token amount in there, 15,000 or something like that.
so at what point do we want to, yeah, I guess it's not clear to me what the basis is for whatever that number is.
There's no basis. Well, our liability is it's something like 100,000, something like that at the moment, if I recall.
And most
city
and most cities and towns have such a severe significant liability. The state keeps on mandating these need to be fully funded by a certain time, and they keep on pushing the dates out because they realize the towns, cities and towns can't even come close to try to fully fund these. Archie's right that we're, 1, 2, or 3 in the state with the percentage of how much we have funded this.
The only reason to pick to do anything is so that we don't forget about this and we pay attention to it every year going forward, so that we put a little bit in there. Remember, this money is getting invested. It's not going into CDs making 0.015%. It's actually going into this is going into equities, and it has a good chance of getting, so the 15,000 has a good chance of actually in a few years actually increasing at a greater rate than the cost of the health cost to the retirees, hopefully, or at least breaks even with, because what we're trying to do is put away money this is paying for health insurance for retirees, and so we want to stay ahead of the cost of increasing costs of health insurance for the retirees. And by being able to put this in an account that actually, is actually in in equities, where we have a chance of actually getting ahead of the game, at least slightly. If health costs go up 5% and the equities go up 9%, we're getting ahead of things. So that's my only point, and we don't have to put anything in, but I think just a little bit, we keep our mind on, we don't forget about this account, and we build it up a little bit. I don't know. 5,000 is fine, whatever anyone thinks.
Archie, are you suggesting we want to grab a number tonight?
I think that because we haven't funded it at all for, I forget
Asking,
now,
we
3 or
did it-
4
we did it
years at
before.
least, because before we were in the black, and then we got the new actuarial study, and then we were in the red a little bit last year. Last year, we did not fund it again because of COVID. So I don't have the auditor even, they said, if you don't fund this, it's not a big deal either. So we're just being
Proactive.
proactive. Yeah.
Well, I made a motion that of 15,000.
Well, for lack of knowing a better number, I guess I'll second.
There really, I know it's hard. I know it's hard, but there really isn't a number. We could put $100,000 into it if we wanted to, but then that would be foolish because we would, we would be in surplus for a long time.
Right.
So just putting a little bit in there every year to try to offset the increase in healthcare costs that are projected, which generally go up, it just helps for our future liability. That's basically what all it is. There's really no sound number. Some towns haven't put anything in years.
4 or 5, I don't know what the number is now, but 4 or 5 years ago, the combined combined deficit of the OPEB accounts for the cities and towns in the Commonwealth was $18 billion. So it's huge. In some places it's
Hundreds of thousands.
or millions. And
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to say millions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so, okay, I'll second Glenn's,
No, Rick seconded.
okay, sorry. So further discussion? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Okay.
Article 9, the FinCom voted 4-0 on this. Hopefully, we can all be on the same page on this like we weren't last year. So this would be to take $397,325 from the school stabilization fund, not from free cash, from the school stabilization, to pay a portion of the town share of the debt service associated with the building of the high school. So we would want to vote on this before we still have to pay. We have to pay the debt associated with the school building project. So if we vote this and approve this at town meeting earlier, then there will be that will make less of a raise and appropriate on the line item budget.
So I think you said this, but just to be clear, so the line item budget assumes this passes. So if this didn't pass, this 397, 325 would need to be put back into the line item budget.
Right.
So yeah, we would want to reorder the articles to make sure this comes up before the budget.
Okay. Right, we talked about that before.
So, so moved.
Glenn, did you second? I'll second.
Further discussion? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Angus and Stephanie's, just so that when this comes to town meeting, we want to have it's always a nice number to have. Let's have the up-to-date number of what's actually in that stabilization fund, so that we can, someone says, well, how much is in there? So that we can answer that question. Yeah.
Okay, and we do have that. It's in, again, it's in that table in the FinCom packet that I forgot to.
Okay,
But the balance as of the 1st of January was 1,658,024.
okay.
And are those funds being accessed now for retiree healthcare?
Yeah, we're talking school stabilization.
Yeah, that money was, that money was what we've saved to offset the debt for the high school.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
But to your answer, Rick, yeah. That comes out of that comes out of that OPEB account, the Essex Tire, that, yes, so yes.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, Article 10. Septic loan revolving account. Archibald, I.
Kemper, I.
Talk about it. I guess we didn't move it, but that's,
I moved to, yeah. I thought that was gonna be off by now, but whatever.
There's one more year after this one, and that'll be.
I think I hear that every year.
I know, I can't remember when this didn't exist.
Well, it all started with Title V. So whenever Title V is back in 1988, no, excuse me, 28 years ago.
Something like that, yeah.
Because that was set up for people to take non-interest grant so they could be in compliance with Title V. So it was like 27 years ago.
Okay, Article 11, this is the, Angus, the one question I have about Article 11, so is this the anticipated CPC revenues or the actuals?
Anticipated.
Okay. So, we all know the drill on this. 28,704 for administrative, 57,408 for housing, 57,408 for historic, 57,408 for open space and recreation, and 373,160 for budgeted reserves. The FinCom has not voted this. So I make a motion to approve Article 11, distribution of the anticipated CPC refunds.
Second.
Further discussion?
Well, the only discussion I would have is those are anticipated. So what if those numbers change? Does that make our vote null and void? Or I guess we should just vote that we would.
No, it's every year it's anticipated. So.
Okay.
I've never
Fine.
understood why we do it, but we do.
Okay, got it. Okay, Kemper, aye.
Archibald, aye.
Parker, aye.
Article 12, also not voted by FinCom yet. Money from CPA funds, historic part, 25K to continue the historic site survey by request of the CPC and the Historical Commission. In the interest of moving forward, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Further discussion?
This is the third and final phase of the historic site survey, right?
Right. So we get half of this back ultimately, Angus, or no?
That's the expectation, is to get a state grant for 12.5, which has happened in the first two phases, but that won't be known by the time of town meeting.
Right. But we did get the other half?
We did.
Okay.
We did. Yep. And we actually got the money as well.
Okay. Archibald, aye.
Glenn,
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Article 13, CPA funds, open space and recreation, 30,000 for costs and expenses pertaining to the, okay, so this has not been, this has not been approved by, either way by the CPC.
It was approved by CPA, but I didn't update the warrant from what.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, CPC recommended it, and within their discussion, the 30,000 was anticipated to be matched by a state grant of about 30,000, if I remember correctly. And so CPC had asked, what if you don't get the grant? What would the 30,000 cover? And so the Open Space Committee, or the Brad Bashore, who's the primary sponsor of this, had gotten a quote from a vendor of what, basically saying if they don't get the state grant, they would still be able to do a survey. And Rick, do you remember exactly what, was that going to cover a concept plan and a meeting?
I think it was limited just to a concept plan.
So no survey. For some reason, I thought the survey was still.
No plan beyond this concept. No, I think the survey is necessary.
Yeah, right. That was my recollection, is the survey and maybe one concept plan and like a meeting.
Yeah, I don't recall what was involved for meetings. I'm sure there'd be at least one or two. But yeah,
if you want more information on that, Archie, I could, we could put that on for next time, and I can put that, because there was some revised backup that came in through the CPC process.
No, I know what it's about. I mean.
Okay, yep. But basically, the proposal would this would be matching funds from a grant, but CPC wanted to know, if you don't get the grant, can you still do some work? And the answer is yes, it's just half as much work.
hopefully we do get that grant, and then hopefully we're in a position afterwards to apply for is it Mass Trails? Trying to recall what the grant that might be applied for actual construction.
I think there was a park grant and a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant were a couple of the
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's LWC.
suggestions.
Yeah.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve Article 13.
So moved. Excuse me, second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Article 14, CPC article, 175,000 for acquisition of 30 plus or minus acres and conservation restriction on 21 acres on the O'Shea property on the land off of Coffin Street. It has, so what is the, and so where does CPC stand on this, or have they not finished?
They haven't. They meet next this coming Thursday. So it's expected they'll make their recommendation that night. As of right now, we have not yet received the appraisal. We had expected that to come in today. I talked to Vanessa this afternoon, and I know the appraiser's working on it. We should get that anytime, but we don't have it in hand yet.
Angus,
Okay.
has there been any feedback from Vanessa about a site visit where we
Yep.
parking and, and a few other topics?
Yes, she is going to send me the event. She wanted to include, there's someone on, that works for Greenbelt that she wanted to be part of that. And so I talked to her this afternoon. She said she'd like to have that. Their director of stewardship. I guess that's the person who handles kind of parking. And so she was going to send me that person's availability and potentially Thursday or Friday of this week. She knows that time is of the essence and that there is interest in figuring out what's the proposed parking instead of having these couple of options being kicked around, but really to drill down on what do we think is the best option.
Yeah.
So,
It's
go
really
ahead, Rick.
unfortunate that we're not going to do that, or that the CPC won't have an opportunity to do that before Thursday's meeting. But that's the way it is.
Angus, there was in your recent in the packet here, I can't find it right this second, but there was mentioned that there was a little strip of land that the one of the people that have already purchased in other words, that a little narrow strip of land, which I assume was partly going to be the access from Coffin, at least by foot, to the property, that even more of that was going to be used by purchased by one of the land, the people that the homeowners in the area. So it in other words, it was making the access even less welcoming than it was. So did I interpret that wrong? Or I read something about that just this weekend in the packet, and it just didn't make, but I couldn't find it on the map. But just let's not waste time on it. But
Yeah, no, I think you're looking on page 65 of the packet and Vanessa's memo. I think you're referring to the easement B, which would be retained by the owner of lot 1.
What page is that? It's like,
Page 65.
Yeah, I
Page
looked at it on
65.
the copy and it wasn't really hard to discern, but I forgot to look at okay, I'm there right now.
okay, the second item, yes, that's it. So I don't know what that means, or I couldn't find it on the map, and
So it's which is Mike Ritchie's property. So the easement B, remember when we did the site walk up at the top of the hill there and there's a stone wall?
yeah.
That easement B is on the other side of the stone wall. It extends.
Oh, it's on the
7 feet.
top of the hill.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, I see it. I was looking down by the street. Okay.
so are we premature in voting for this tonight then, I would assume, or?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put this on for the next agenda on the 26th. And as soon as we get the appraisal, I'll send it to you all at the same time I send it to CPC.
Article 16, as written here, to transfer from available funds, free cash, the sum of $700,000 into the capital stabilization plan fund. So that would be a 2/3 vote to put that into stabilization from free cash. I would make a motion to approve that transfer.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none. Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Right.
Okay, so now we're back to the bridge. 600,000 for expenses related to the bridge. So we had all previously felt that we would continue on, at least for the moment, in the with this plan. So this would take 600,000 from so this would be coming from free cash.
Right.
600,000 would be coming from capital stabilization.
After this, if 16 passed, and then it would go, in other words,
Yes. Yeah.
16 and 17 is sort of related. So
Yes.
So what would we do if 16 didn't pass?
I would think we would pass over 17 with no action.
Okay,
Because, yeah, that would really deplete the stabilization fund.
right. Okay, so I would make a motion to approve the, if needed, the transfer of 600,000 from the capital stabilization fund to for ongoing reconstruction of the Middle Street Bridge. It was approved 4-0 by the FinCom.
Second,
Further discussion? All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Okay, so we just spent 700,000. Now we got to come to something for like $30 and argue about it for 45 minutes. Okay. The town will, this one is 95,000 for expenses related to roof repairs to all the town buildings, ceiling, rubber roofs, that type of thing, very worthwhile and way less expensive than roof replacement. So this is, Angus, was this going to come this is coming just from free cash, correct?
No,
Not
no,
from-
this is capital stabilization and.
It is, okay?
It is, yeah, and it went through the CIC process.
Okay. So therefore, this is a 2/3 vote of stabilization. I would make a motion to approve Article 18 as written. And it was also approved by the FinCom.
Second,
Further discussion? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Okay, Article 19, the fire tanker truck has been removed by a vote of the Board of Fire Engineers with the anticipation that a combined pumper tanker truck, which would obviously be a little bit more expensive, but less expensive than two separate vehicles, would be brought forward in the next fiscal year. Next item is the Jaws of Life, which was to be funded through the stabilization account. So again, 2/3 vote, 35,000 for the purchase of new Jaws of Life. Vehicles they now have better roll bars. They're much stronger. Actually, their body integrity is stronger than it used to be. So better Jaws of Life are needed to actually carry out the task of extricating someone from a vehicle.
This is all, also, Archie, this is now all electric. Instead of the older Jaws of Life were hydraulic, and this is now electric and battery powered.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
So apparently, based on what Mike had told us, was that it's just much easier to pull it out and use it. You don't.
Yeah, you don't have to connect it to the hydraulic system, right?
No, and it can be be charged up with those charging stations in front of the town hall.
I hadn't heard that, but that's great. Great story.
No.
Uh,
Mike McCarron said we've made $5 and something cents on that, so people are using them.
Oh, good.
And that wasn't, I'm not trying to be facetious. That's good news.
Yeah, no, it's going to take a while, but they'll get used. I'm confident. The other thing about this particular article, Angus, wasn't there an additional was that a second $10,000 grant that was received for this?
A single, yeah, we recently learned in the last 2 to 3 weeks, we learned that we did receive a $10,000 grant, which would offset the cost. So I was going to suggest that we, keep it on and then do that as a revised motion. on the floor of town meeting, but you could, I believe you could reduce it, the article itself, to 25,000 because
So this is actually a second grant. Wasn't there a $10,000 grant already that had been received? And maybe I misread what,
I don't think so. They've
No,
been,
just, yeah.
Rick, they've been trying to get a grant on this for years.
okay, I guess I misunderstood because I thought that the other grant already had, been awarded.
Just the one in the last, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Okay, all right.
But I don't think we've gotten all of the grant paperwork and so forth
Yeah.
yet.
I would say
can't
don't count
honestly-
your chickens yet. Make
Yeah,
it
that's
at-
kind of
yeah.
that's why I was going to suggest let's leave it on for 35 and then
Yeah.
time of town meeting, that should be more bankable.
Yeah. This was approved 5-0 by the FinCom.
Angus, when do you expect you'll know that, you'll receive that info?
I mean, we effectively know it right now. It's just, but I mean, there's so many grants, Rick, and we got other jobs to do. Like we're dealing with over 30 grants right now. Like it's hard to keep all the facts straight.
Okay.
We know we got the money. I don't recall, I don't remember seeing the paperwork.
Yeah.
The contract, and I haven't felt, I mean, we'll get it when we get it. We got a lot of other things that we're working on.
The reason why I was asking is I was just wondering if we should hold off and just approve this one when we know it all, as opposed to modifying.
Well, we know that the gross cost is 35. We expect the net cost to be 25.
Okay.
I don't know what more we need to know.
Okay, if we're confident in all that, that's great.
Well, I mean, I'd support it even if we didn't get the grant, so.
Yeah. So would I.
So I make a motion to approve Article 20.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Article 21, to transfer from free cash, to reduce the fiscal year 2022 tax rate. I'm gonna say 9 million. So what are your thoughts, Angus?
Well, to do what we've done in the past, by this time we would have had the tax recap model and we could give you a pretty good estimate of what we think the tax rate is going to be. We haven't had time to do that this cycle. And sitting here today, I don't really, next 2 weeks we'll have time. I mean, what is on our plate. So we have 100 hours a week.
Yeah, so I think that,
We just don't have the time to do everything.
So we have done this mostly in the fall, so I don't see why we can't do that in the fall again.
And that would be my recommendation. I mean, I think when we started the budget process back in December, we had put it in to basically try to do it this spring with the idea that, to try to give the voters the full story with the budget and to say, if we think we're going to use free cash or propose free cash to offset the tax rate, to try to bring that all forward in the spring. And I think that's a good idea in principle, but in reality, there's so many moving parts that, the time it takes to estimate that tax rate, it's actually, I don't know, with Stephanie and I, we could probably if we each put in 4 or 5 hours, we could probably get there. But with everything else we have to do in the next 2 weeks, to spend 4 or 5 hours on this means something else that's more important isn't going to get done. That's the reality that we deal with every day. So I think based on where we are, even if we did an amount, we might be back in the fall anyway. If it doesn't arrive at the tax rate that you want it to. And as you know, from years of doing this, until we know the assessed values and new growth, it's all guesswork anyway.
Yeah, it's not going to do us any good until the fall. So let's just wait until the fall.
Yeah, I think that would be my recommendation at this point.
So I'd make a motion to take it off the warrant.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Right.
Article 22, to see if the town will vote to accept as a public way the layout of Cortlandt Lane. Somehow it's unclear to me, and I don't want to get, I don't really care about the details, but it never got officially put in as an accepted municipal street, although it has been receiving plowing and so forth. So I would make a motion to approve Article 22.
Second for discussion. That was held off, Archie, for a while because something about the developer when it was being developed. So there was some delay, but then obviously it just fell through the cracks through the years because there was some delay because the developer hadn't finished something or the town just wasn't happy with what they did. So there was a reason not to accept it, in the traditional way, I guess would be a good way of saying it.
We're using it as a carrot to get something done by the.
Yeah, and then I think it fell through the cracks.
Well, no,
and
actually,
so it was voted by town meeting in 2010 to accept it as a public way. But the street acceptance plan was then never recorded, which needs within 120 days of the vote. So we don't know why that didn't happen, but it was actually voted by town meeting in 2010.
But there was some delay, wasn't there?
There was, yeah. The subdivision, I want to say, was approved in like 97. So it was more than 12 years before it was brought forward for acceptance.
Okay. Okay, I knew there was something about it, so I wasn't sure. Okay.
And, you'll see when we get to the next item on the agenda, we do still have to follow the same process as if that 2010 vote never happened. So I am going to be looking to the board to formally refer the proposed acceptance to the planning board, which is a requirement of statute. And Ray Cook has said that, assuming it is referred tonight, that the planning board will take it up at their meeting a week from tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, I would, I'd make a motion to refer to the planning board.
I think
that's the next item.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
on Article 22, didn't we move in second?
Yeah, no
Archie
vote
moves,
yet.
Glenn seconded, yeah.
Okay, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Article 23, to see if the town will amend section 6 of the town bylaws, animal bylaw, to establish a new disposal of waste section and to establish requirements related to disposal and removal, including establishment and enforcement of fines for violations.
So moved. You really want? Yeah, you, okay.
Second.
Further discussion? We got to, I'll work with Mike and we'll use we pretty much said, we set up the motion for town hall on the previous last year before we tabled it. So we'll work on that.
Yeah, we included the same language that we used last June, and it was in the FinCom booklet last June. So that's, but yeah, take another look at that and make sure that that's exactly how you want it.
Okay.
Including the fee structure or fine structure, I should say.
You gonna still propose 10 grand, Archie?
Oh, the inflation, it could be more.
Okay.
Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Now we want to establish revolving funds for the electric vehicle charging stations revolving funds. I'm not going to read the whole
So,
item.
so moved.
Second,
Further discussion?
well, just so,
I'll-
because we didn't
Go
read,
ahead.
just so people understand, this is essentially any funds that come into through the EV charging stations have to go somewhere, and then they have to pay for things like the electric bill and, well, primarily the electric bill for that particular service. So that's
And if there was ever maintenance, that kind of thing.
right. Or yeah, or in the future. I mean, we've already prepaid the maintenance and communications for a 5-year that they were funded at the last 2 town meetings. So we're covered for the communications, with the charge point system and maintenance and warranty on the system for the next 5 years. But these funds could then pay for after 5 years for additional communications or maintenance.
All in favor, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
So Article 25, not voted by the FinCom. This is to establish a revolving fund for the new trash and recycling and food waste fund. And so in other words, if individuals that want to, for example, have an additional barrel, that there will be a cost associated with that. This will pay for the funds for these carts, which are the additional carts, or for removal of large items, those kind of things. This will go into the revolving fund related to the collection of trash and recycling. So again, I'm not going to read the whole thing. We have to do this. I make a motion to approve Article 25.
Second.
Hey, Mike, when we first were drafting these warrants a couple of months ago, I assumed anyway that the date of effect of this change to the hauling would be July 1st, but we've since learned that the proposed date is June 1st by the Board of Health. So would this be appropriate to do on a special?
It's a bylaw change, not a money appropriation one.
Mhm.
And under the they put this in under the Municipal Modernization Act, and they allowed cities and towns to basically, upon voting, use it, because obviously you had the circumstance of, you approve a bylaw, but it might not be approved by the Attorney General for another 3 months. So they have allowed people to kind of anticipate its approval. So
Okay,
it's
good.
not
So-
an appropriation.
Right. Okay. So right. Assuming this passes, Stephanie could set up the new account on the books. Yeah. That
Right.
week. Okay. Good. Thanks.
Would it be able to accept money at that point, or have to wait on that?
No, that's
No,
the
it
point.
would accept, yeah, it can, as soon as we vote on it, the next day we could be accepting money.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. Article 25, Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye. So
Artic-
Angus, I guess the timing on that is, it was important that the account be set up as soon as possible, because with town meeting on May 22nd, we'll be switching to those new containers a week later, or, just over a week later. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, on that topic, would it be a good idea for somebody from Mello or the Board of Health to actually, if it's gonna be like the next week, to have a barrel there and at town meeting and just answer questions for a few minutes? I know we want to get the meeting over, but I just,
Not a bad idea.
I don't know.
Somebody from the-
If you want the Board of Health to make a report on it, then that's how
Yeah,
you, that's
yeah,
when
that's
you
what I
do
was, yeah, I was gonna say, have the Board of Health do it rather than Mello.
Okay. That's something to think about.
Yeah, but hopefully all the questions and everything and the distribution of these things and everything like that will be far underway if they're gonna be doing it the next week.
I know, but you know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I know.
The barrels are gonna be turned the wrong way, or they're not, you know. Okay. Article 26, these are the vote the limit of total amount that may be expended from each revolving fund, section 2, pursuant to section 40 of the bylaws of the town of West Newbury. Summer rec fund 44,350. GER library fines and revolving and penalties fund 10 grand. Police vehicle fund 20. Pipe stave care and maintenance revolving fund 5 grand. EV charging stations fund 10,000. Curbside recycling and food waste revolving fund 150,000. So moved.
Second,
Further discussion?
None.
All in favor? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Article 27, to see if the town will vote to adopt a new section of town bylaws in order to establish a Wetlands Protection Act bylaw. The FinCom has made no recommendation on this article.
Archie, oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
In the interest of discussion, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second for discussion. So Archie, I'm not in favor of this bylaw at all at this time, and having not found any reason to have it. Going around town, I don't think enough even citizens realize the potential impact of this bylaw could bring. And restrictions and costs to homeowners. I have not heard one reason, like, what are we trying to fix by doing this? We live in a pretty blue state, so to speak, not a red state. Our environmental, restrictions in this state are pretty good. We follow the state regulations an inch thick on this particular thing, and like even our septic ones are 10% more than the state, and people really don't even understand why that has occurred and how much more money that does cost different homeowners. Just an example, part of this bylaw is that intermittent stream. So the swales on either side of a road that could get wet and be stream-like during the spring, but be dry otherwise, would be affected in the sense that someone trying to put a new mailbox in because of that drainage, I guess you could call it, would have to get an order of conditions from the Concom to be able to put a new mailbox in under these new regulations. In the area of COVID, I know they've had some public hearings. I guess only 2 people, and I think Archie, you being one of them, questioning it. I honestly don't believe that the word has gotten out enough. I think this needs to be taken off the warrant and brought back to the town at a different time where I think we need to be more aware of it. This has a major impact, and I don't think people realize it. And I would like to have I would make a motion, actually, well, we'd have to vote this motion, but I'm going to make a motion after we take a vote on this to take it off the warrant. That's my my 2 cents at this time.
So my understanding from 2 weeks ago, when the Concom was present, was that there were answers to some of the questions that had been posed, and there was also an issue of possibly looking at what streams, what flows in town were going to be covered, as opposed to a general statement about all flows. That sort of along the lines, there was an example of how Boxford has done it, that the Concom might look at trying to predefine the streams that were which the largest setback was applicable. And I don't know if that's happened or not. I think there might still be some ambiguity. Glenn, I'm not totally with you in not thinking that it is appropriate at all, but I think from what I've heard, that it sounds like there are still some things to iron out.
Yeah, well, maybe if I sounded too strong, Rick, I'm sorry for that. It's not about being inappropriate. It's just like, why? There is nobody's giving me a concrete reason why do we need to be stricter to the town and oppose more constraints, more money, honestly, on homeowners. And it's one of those things. Why change something? You're trying to fix something. If we're trying to fix something, I'd love to be able to hear that argument. And I just don't see it, a need for it. And especially with the stream aspect of it. I would agree with that, Rick, that it needs to be much more defined. And another thing is, I don't think people realize in this time how much this is really going to affect them. And I think there needs to be time. Maybe this is an educational point that, that at least it would get out there and people would talk about it. And then, we would get a lot more of these questions answered, especially about the streams. And then maybe a scaled down version, maybe this version comes back, but at least I understand, quote unquote, it's been properly vetted through hearings and stuff. But in this world of COVID, people aren't they're not really acute when there isn't any COVID, but they're definitely not listening to what's going on, especially on these Zoom meetings. If you even look at these Zoom meetings, they're not very well attended. I don't know. I just feel that there's no real reason to do it right now. There's no emergency that we have to, put in place to stop something and, the environment or something that's really being damaged. So the state feels fit to have their regulations and we follow them. And they're, a lot stricter than a lot of states in this country. So I don't think the need for it to oppose this on residents is needed at this time.
So I looked over the last couple of weeks over the science behind setbacks. First of all, what I'm going to tell you now is what and this was from the original data that people put forth to come up with the numbers of why is something 50 feet, why is something 100 feet, and these applied to actual streams and these were the numbers were from taken from studies of, like I say, actual streams as opposed to intermittent streams, which I hope we would agree are not even actually the same thing. So these are applied to real streams, real rivers, and the take-home message was, for the most part, the only thing that is affected beyond that something that's set back, say, 10 feet to 20 feet, it's really not doing much of any good whatsoever. So that kind of a setback doesn't do much. 50 feet is certainly helping with the vegetation and so forth around the running body of water. And up to 100 feet is pretty much that amount of soil and vegetation is pretty much filtering out, is a pretty good number to stop any effects that is getting into the water, provided a good buffer of the is maintained of that 100 feet of maintaining the vegetation and so forth. So not much goes beyond this. This is, I'm not just making this up. This is where the numbers come from. The basic science of people that came up with these numbers. So 100 feet was pretty good, they felt, for most types of running bodies of water. So, and they were not talking about intermittent streams. The only thing that they felt was subject to, that could be a greater than 100, that if you wanted to protect the wildlife of, then a setback of greater than 100 would be recommended. So having no effect on the wildlife along the banks of the river or whatever, then a setback of greater than 100 feet would be recommended. But these were talking about large bodies of rivers, not swales. So so 200 feet is really just, if 100 feet is good, 200 must be better. So that's not necessarily true, except for like I said, in the interest of wildlife. It's not affecting vegetation, pollution, percolation of chemicals through the ground into the water. So that's kind of puts a damper on, no pun intended, on using 200 feet. Another thing is, I try to, one of my questions, which which has not been answered to my satisfaction, and I think it's important, is not only homeowners be affected. Say a homeowner wants to change their driveway from a gravel driveway to having granite paving stones instead of gravel. Well, that would, it seems like a pretty minor change to me, but that would certainly initiate, in this instance, getting an order of conditions. But I thought about it further after our meeting a couple of weeks ago. I thought, what about, how does that affect town services? Because certainly these intermittent streams, which are basically I've been driving around on my bike and in the car, observing as many town roads as I could, and mostly all of the old town roads, you name it, Indian Hill, Bachelor Street, Church Street, all have at least some Main Street I can go on and on, Crane Neck, have some areas of these swales where the water is running, and by the definition in this proposed bylaw would constitute an intermittent stream. So that being said, and certainly within 10 feet of these, or 5 feet of these, is the road. So if the town wants to do crack sealing on the road, or or salt the road in the winter, whatever it is, would that necessitate the DPW receiving and having to receive permission for order of conditions from the Conservation Commission just to do crack sealing on the road? And that hasn't been answered to my satisfaction. So because of these, I'm not against increasing protection to the wetlands or any of that, but I think there's so many ramifications to this that were not even considered, and for that reason, I'm actually not in favor of this article, and I think it should be taken off the warrant until we can work on it and these questions can be answered further.
Archie, can I just make one point?
Sure.
The Conservation Commission met after our meeting with you, and rather than follow the Boxford model of naming the intermittent streams that were covered, we are going to just omit drainage ditches from that regulation. So they will not be covered as an intermittent stream. That's how the bylaw is going to be proposed, for whatever that's worth.
Okay.
The other thing is that the 200 feet.
That's why not the Boxford model?
Because there's so many intermittent streams in West Newbury that aren't named, it would be really difficult to identify the ones that are covered. The other point is that the 200 feet protection buffer zone for rivers is mandated by the state. That's not something that we created. So even though 100 feet, as you said, is could be adequate, the state requires 200 feet be regulated from a body of water.
Okay, but these would have been classified as a running body of water, though.
Right, but so, based on our discussion, we went back and revised how it's going to be proposed. So I'm just passing that along.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would just, I mean, that's good to know, Wendy, but I would have, I did reach out to Bert on Thursday with some questions, and, I asked him to keep me apprised, and he was aware this discussion was happening tonight. So I guess, I don't know when the Concom met, but it would have been helpful to have that information. Because I had requested, and I had sent the questions that Archie had asked about DPW and orders of conditions, and I didn't get any response to that.
And just to bring up another point, this is a huge change here, or I don't know if huge is the right word, but this significant change in the bylaw, and we're having some turnover in the Concom. I don't think this is a good, to try to implement this, to try to properly vet it and have it done. I don't think that's another reason why I don't think this is a good time to make this change. And I go back to why. There is no, if somebody said, yes, we need to do this to stop, nuclear waste from infiltrating, I'm just using a ridiculous thing, infiltrating our town because we see it encroaching on us, so we need this to protect everybody, then I think we'd be all for it. But there is still no why, no answer to why. Can we move this, Archie? I don't mean to.
Okay, so the motion on the floor, it was to approve the article as the article which 25 as no, I'm sorry, not 25, Article 27 as written in the booklet, but so further discussion.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say I do in general terms see a reason for the town to have its own wetlands bylaw that is in certain areas more restrictive than the state's bylaws, but based on where we are right now in the conversation and understanding of what it is, you know, I'll look to take this back up again at another time. For another town meeting.
Kemper, no.
Archibald, no.
Parker, no.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we take this off the warrant for our spring town meeting.
Second. Further discussion? Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Well, further discussion is, I still think it would be valuable for it to be discussed at town meeting. Reason being that, as Glenn pointed out earlier, it's hard to get people to focus on things. And the one time that we would get people to focus on it would be at town meeting.
So so we can still take it off the warrant, and the Concom can make a presentation about a proposed wetlands bylaw change that they're going to be bringing up at a future town meeting. And we just wanted to make sure that we get ahead of the curve and tell people now, because so it's not a surprise to anybody in the fall.
I voted no.
Okay,
I'm sorry, Rick, I didn't hear you.
I voted no.
Okay,
No for taking it off the warrant.
okay,
So it sounds like it's 2-1.
okay. I agree with Rick. At some point, next in the fall, but there was some huge, I mean, like just what you just said, Wendy, huge changes, but this is not something to be doing at the last second. I guess that's we like to vet things, get everything. Things don't go well at town meeting either when there's a lot of dissension between different groups. People don't get, they don't understand it when one group wants something and another committee doesn't. And we saw what happened with things when the FinCom and the Selectboard didn't agree with things at last town meeting. And so things can work if we all get together. That's sort of the way I feel about it. We need to. This needed more work.
and I think some good examples of present day homes and how it would affect them and restrict them monetarily, or if they might not be allowed to do something at all.
Well,
I think that's
still,
important.
I still think the defining things the way Boxford, I believe it was Boxford, had done, that if we're just saying not drainage ditches, but there's lots of things that are sort of, we're not sure about what they are, and so we need to define things. I think we need, even that's too vague. It needs better definition.
Yep, I would agree.
I can just think of the near the sort of two ends of the my driveway sort of goes on two different streets, and the part that comes out on Indian Hill that ultimately goes into Kelly Brook Lane across the street, Kelly Brook into the Kelly Brook on Kelly Brook Lane, and so, but it is a swale, but there's water in there a lot of the time. So is that a drainage ditch, or is that an intermittent stream? I don't know. We have to have, I think we need a little bit, I think that definition needs to be sharpened.
Or have
It
drain.
has to be literally, it has to be someone has to look at all of these, and that's a lot of work.
Or has drainage ditches that we have not maintained. I just thought about this as you were saying that, because we've had complaints about that around town. Drainage ditches that have not been maintained by the town properly have then turned into quote unquote wetlands in people's homes, and then they're getting orders of conditions because the town hasn't taken care of the drainage ditches properly. It's the right thing to do now, and to have a broader discussion about it. And I hope Concom comes to town meeting and does a presentation on it, and what their thoughts behind it are, and how it's going to affect the town. That would be phenomenal.
Okay.
I would like to see, an initiative to go forward to also, really try to coordinate with a stormwater bylaw, because that is something we do have to do under our EPA permit. And I assume the conservation agent's been keeping the commission briefed on that, because he's part of our working group meetings and so forth. But that is something that's on track for a fall town meeting. It's going to take a lot of work. Part of the work is making sure that it is reflective of the existing regulations. So I think there's an opportunity to try to do something that's in coordination between the two, because that stormwater bylaw is going to have a significant effect on both regulatory burden, which affects homeowners and developers, but it also affects town staff in terms of who's going to actually do the work. But it's also going to have a significant, presumably positive effect on environmental quality and runoff and so forth. So I think it's at kind of common purposes of some of what the draft wetlands bylaw is trying to get done. But I would think, we really need not just the agent, but the commission actively involved with that stormwater effort. So maybe that's not.
So is there a big overlap between those kinds of things, Angus, or?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Article 28, this was a citizen petition to see if the town will vote to delay any additional expenditure on the car post project until the productive use for the building is identified and approved. This was turned down 5-0 by the FinCom.
I'd make a motion to disapprove.
Second. Further discussion?
So a yes vote would be to disapprove it.
That
I
is
just
correct.
want to make sure.
I get whatever you say, Glenn. I'm losing it at this point. Okay.
Yeah, so am I. So I'm ready to call it quits here. I have to get up at 4:30.
Okay, a yes vote would be to disapprove. Okay. So Archibald, aye.
Kemper, aye.
Parker, aye.
Well, thank you guys. You really did a huge amount of work. You made a lot of progress tonight on these issues.
So just a last comment about the that Article 28. It will be very interesting to see after the design work is done and it goes to bid, what the numbers look like.
Yeah, it will.
I know.
Yeah, I was kind of, when they talked about the bridge, maybe we're getting too far out, because the high school, actually, because of COVID and because of the lack of building, I guess, and stuff, we were able to save some money in a lot of different areas when the bids went out. They were a lot lower than we thought for the high school. And I thought that trend might keep on going, but I guess it's stopped now because things are starting to turn around, especially with that bridge. That kind of surprised me when I saw those numbers. So I hope, I hope it's not the same with the veterans. But it is what it is at the end of the day.
Hey Glenn, speaking of the middle school, high school, do you know, is there a landscape plan available for that?
Yes, there is. I can, I can forward that to you. We have a meeting, what, tomorrow night, right, Angus?
Yep, tomorrow night.
Yep, I can, in the morning, I can ask, I'll text Brad and see if he can forward something over to us, or at least make sure we bring it up at tomorrow night's meeting.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think the landscape actually in the various areas and the more quality use out there has benefited from money being saved in other areas, if I'm not mistaken, just off the cuff. So, but I'll get that for you.
Okay, thanks.
What's up with, I gotta find it, with K? Just tell me when we need to do.
So the motion, the form of motion is on page 96 of your packet. But this is, we have to follow the exact steps set out by statute with referral of the proposed acceptance to the planning board. They'll then take that up and make a recommendation. And this issue of acceptance of Cortlandt Lane would be on a future select board agenda because the abutters need to receive 7 days advance notice. So you'll be seeing this again, presumably at one of the May meetings.
Okay. I move that the select board vote its intention to lay out Cortlandt Lane as a public way as shown on a plan entitled Street Acceptance Plan for Cortlandt Lane dated October 4, 2004, prepared by Apple Associates Incorporated, on file with the town clerk, and to forward this vote and the plan to the planning board for its comments and recommendations pursuant to General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81G and 81
Aye.
I. I'm not sure if that's an I or an L,
That's
whatever.
an aye.
Okay.
A second.
Discussion. Could this not get accepted and that could ruin all the parking plans that we have up there?
Well, if it doesn't get accepted,
Obviously.
it probably ruins the plowing plan currently.
Correct, and the trash pickup
Arguably, we've been plowing it illegally for all these years.
and picking up trash.
Right. So we kind of need to deal with it.
Okay.
We could send them a bill.
Okay, I'm ready to vote.
Archibald, I.
Kemper, aye.
Booker, aye.
Thank you.
Okay, town report. What should we do?
Draft something and, once I have time, I mean, send it around and just, I'd like for you guys, or at least some, to have a set of eyes on it.
Okay.
If you wants to take a crack. Archie dictated a nice one verbally last week. Very succinct.
Okay, I make a motion to approve minutes from Feb 4, 2019, Feb 19, 2019, and March 18th, 2019.
It's up to you and Glenn.
Yeah,
Glenn's muted.
I was froze there for 2 seconds. What's up?
So these were minutes going back to before Rick was on the board. So it's between you and Archie.
Okay. Make a motion
By the
to
way,
approve.
I did, yeah.
Okay, second.
All in favor, Archibald, I.
Kemper, aye.
And so those were the last set of kind of old days minutes that just had lingered all this time.
Well, my, I don't know how much you can get done, but my last meeting is going to be in 2 weeks. So,
Yep.
So we maybe want to try to get as many as we can that I've
No,
been part of.
in terms of open
or
session
whatever.
minutes, this was the last of them.
I would,
It's done. There was just a little donut hole in the middle. But now this fills it.
Okay, anything else?
It's all just informational, that, the materials in your packet. So I think given the lateness of the hour.
I would appreciate it.
Yeah, just one question. So, excuse me, Angus, so what, so any further, there was so many back and forth emails, I couldn't even keep them straight with Park and Rec, but so, so what do we need to know about what's happening there?
They're working to set a fee schedule, which I think is long overdue, and I credit them for the work that they're doing. It's very difficult.
Okay, all I want to know is, in your eyes, does it make sense? Because it says like, this group already paid a few years ago, and this group, we feel bad for them, so they don't get any charge, and this group, we're charging them. It seems, to me, it seems all over the
More-
place.
yeah, it seems more
makes sense to
confusing.
you.
It is. I mean, my main point is, before they vote something, I think, just like I said earlier tonight about water rates, I think there needs to be something published that everybody has an advanced amount of time to review and study and then give comments. And then I'd like to see the commission vote something in an open meeting after having given people time. So what's happened so far, they've done a lot of work, made efforts and outreach, but very often the outreach has gone out like a day or a day and a half ahead of time. And this is important, and it, affects leagues and their rate structure and so forth. So it's very challenging for that commission because they don't have any dedicated staff support. So it's, and they do a lot of work as volunteers, quite a lot of work, I will say. So it's challenging. They're trying to tackle something that, there's years and years of history behind it,
but they should too. I think they need to, and it seems like they are, obviously get on top of it, but do it so far in advance that we can tell people a year in advance what this fee, because these people doing it now, their kids already paid hypothetically for soccer. Now all of a sudden there's going to be a fee structure. So where does that money come from? So that's what they've always kind of, not them, but it's always been kind of behind the 8 ball rather than saying, hey, this is our fee structure for the next 3 years so people can plan.
I could not agree more.
And we were told that they were going to handle the September dual booking issue, and it looks like the Phoenix has come to life again. It does.
I know. I'm not kidding. I agree.
They said it was all handled. It doesn't appear to be handled. That's all.
Well, it's handled in some people's minds because they think it can work, but with some, I don't know, whatever.
But
good luck. Good
but
luck to you.
Having said, if they're not going to handle it, it has to come back to the select board soon. We're not going to deal with this in August.
Well, hold on.
We've already made plans. We can't change anything at this point.
Well,
that's not fair.
Archie, all kidding aside, what you need to do is when they say, hey, we've handled it, you need to ask the next question. Okay, how have you handled it? And to make sure how they handled it is suitable for you, or not you personally, but the select board. Because sometimes they say, oh yeah, we handled it. Well, they handled it by getting a couple of volunteers and have these events, all the events the same day, and saying, oh, we got a couple of volunteers and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen and we're going to direct traffic to a certain way so it all can work. But that never happened, and it can't all work. There's just not enough space up there. So you have to ask that next question, because in their minds, they've handled it.
Yeah.
But it's really not handled.
In the packet that we had for tonight, there was mention in one of the emails that the flag football tournament or jamboree or whatever they call it was on maybe a meeting that's already happened, was on the agenda for a meeting that's either coming up or maybe has already happened. Now, was it 2 meetings ago? I think, Glenn, I don't think you were present, if I remember right. when we talked about that. Deb Hamilton had written a letter, and we
Mhm.
Talk to her, yeah.
yeah, we talked with her.
Yeah, I read the letter. I mean, I read the stuff, but something came up
Okay. And
that I
and
couldn't
essentially
comment.
both Archie and I, you know, unfortunately, you weren't able to state your thoughts at that point, but, we essentially said that from our perspective, for that particular event, the equine folks should have the space to themselves. And,
I,
hopefully
I would agree with
okay,
that.
so hopefully they'll
Totally.
be heard, and they'll, and if there's questions, they'll come back to us.
I mean, if you think about it, right? They've been doing this for years. They only ask for like 2 days. Is it a year? Or maybe 3?
It's
3
That's
days
it.
a year, yeah.
but
Yeah,
two of them-
3 days. 3 days a year. That's it. I think
But
they.
the other people, their emails seemed unbelievably uncompromising, and they talked about the kids having to play flag football during the in sub-zero weather or some nonsense like that because they'd be pushed back 1 week.
Mike
So
McCarron, are you on here?
The compromise does not seem like it's
I'm here.
happening. Yeah.
So, doesn't the selectman hold the trump card? I always thought this, but I thought you corrected me at one point. We
They have to come to us.
we give Park and Rec the authority to manage the sites because they use it the most. And do the maintenance on the fields and stuff like that. Because we thought that would be the best way to handle it.
It's in
The
the
management
Mill
agreement.
Pond management.
Yeah. But it comes back to us.
The idea is that in the case of a dispute between different parties using it's determined the Board of Selectmen is the arbiters.
Correct.
Basically it comes back to you if the sides can't agree and somebody has to make a decision as to how things are going to go. That's what the management agreement
exactly.
says.
Yep. So Archie, I would just send a preemptive letter from the board if you guys vote that way and say, hey, listen, if you guys can't work this out, that riding and driving club or the equine, whatever we're calling it, doesn't have sole possession of that on these 3 days, then you're wrong. And that's what we're going to vote on. So, you know what I mean? So there doesn't need to be any back and forth. You know what I mean? Just do it preemptively. Whatever. That would be my suggestion. Because it doesn't seem, how many times have we all stood up there and tried to work all this out? I know I have 2 or 3 times with Kathy Ferry, with the parking, with Tom Flaherty. We're all standing up there trying to work it out. And everybody's always told me it's all worked out, but it never seems to happen the day of the event. And it's always too late to change things. You're right, Archie. So do it now.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Actually, I have a one quick topic on new business.
Okay.
So a month and a half or so ago, we voted to allow at that point, MVP working group to submit a letter of interest to the MVP, the state MVP program for, the potential to apply for a grant. And I think that by before our next meeting, that there will be a grant application that the now Climate Change Resiliency Committee would like the board to approve. And so this is just sort of a heads up that this will probably come in the next 2 weeks. I obviously needs to be in time to be on the agenda.
Are you asking us to approve it tonight, Rick?
No, I'm not. I'm just giving you a heads up, and that's
Okay.
all I'm
okay.
gonna say. Okay, so
No, that's cool. I would say
just so you
approve
understand
it.
it's coming. If it's going to happen, it has to happen in the next 2 weeks. Because the application is due on, I think it's May 6th or May 7th. So yeah, I guess it's May 7th is a Friday. So the application is due on May 7th, and there isn't another selectmen's meeting before that date, except for the meeting on the 26th.
Okay, well, that almost seems like not enough time. Like if it comes out to Glenn's point, if we're gonna approve it or disapprove it, either way, let's do it now so you can start.
Well, we need, the application needs to be put together. So,
That's what I
personally,
mean, but if you don't know until April 26th and it's due the 6th of May, that's only a week.
well, no, we would have the application ready for the board to approve or disapprove.
Oh. Okay.
That's, I mean.
Oh, you'd be ready to go. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, no, the plan is for it to be ready to go.
Okay.
I personally don't think that we should be asked to vote on something that we haven't seen.
Okay. Okay. Good.
So that's just a heads up.
Okay.
Great. So I'd second.
So the final thing is, let's think about things that we want to two things just in the back of our mind. So citizen vote and also directions for the water commissioners. Okay, thanks all.
Great.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
All right.